We are here to answer the age-old question: who is the better person and who should survive at the end of Walking Dead Season 2? Kenny or Jane? So guys, in the past we made a video, Kenny versus Lily, where Jack, who's Team Kenny, went against me, who was Team Lily. Well, Team Lily up until she shot the love of my life in the face. But this time again, Season 2 pitches us another Kenny battle where we have Kenny. And Jack is going to be defending him today. Kenny's the defendant and Jack is the lawyer. And I will be defending Jane because I am Team Jane when it comes to this. But before we do and we go into our debate, guys, we did put out a poll a month ago. So, Jack, we asked the fans in TellTale's The Walking Dead Season 2 finale, who did you end the game with? Mate, what do you make of them results?
Well, you can't question intelligence, can you? Because
we're going there. God.
Yeah, I'm throwing the first blow in this, mate. So a good 69%. Well, hey, 69% voted for Kenny, 13% with Jane, and second place solo, 18%. I'll tell you what. Before I do, back Kenny to the hilt here, what I would say, because I did end my playthrough with Kenny. I do think for the game overall, and actually for Kenny, it's better if you leave him at Wellington. Having done the stream now, and you have that scene where he has that touching goodbye, and it's just really powerful and moving, and it's natural because I think where his character is going, it probably makes sense that you should split up because he's clearly on the decline. Also, as well, it just spares him that god-awful death that they gave him in A New Frontier as well. So I actually would pick solo in future playthroughs, but yeah, I'm going to back Kenny in this video, and in my first one, I did stick with him to the very end.
No, I get you. Yeah, no, and it is absolutely, I'm not Kenny's biggest fan, but, even I'm, the guy got done dirty in Season 3, that flashback, I wouldn't wish that on him. So yeah, it is worth guys not sticking with Kenny to the very end. You have to drop him off at some point, at least. But I just want to say, mate, so Jane got 13% and Solo got 18%. I will say that I am Team Solo, but my ranking would go Solo, Jane, Kenny. So I'm going to come into this video defending Jane, but I want people to know, for the record, I am Team Solo. Because what she did with that baby is pretty poor. But guys, thank you. We had 287 votes on that one, so that's fantastic. Thank you to everyone who did that. But Jack, without further ado, are we ready to get into some debating?
I think so. I think it's only fair, because Kenny's the favourite here, that I give the floor to you first, as to why Jane is the better person.
Another thing I've got to do as well, and I'm sorry guys, some of you are like, oh, fight already, get it fucking over with, but I'm going to say one more disclaimer. I was talking to you before, Jack, about how this Kenny versus Jane thing, I think this whole debate, it's also a moral conundrum as well. And I do want to say that I don't think there's a right and a wrong answer. If you're a Kenny fan out there, 69% of you are. I'm clearly in the minority camp here, so I'm going to have people throwing daggers at me. I'm not saying you guys are wrong. I think it boils down to a moral question, and it's a philosophy question. And it boils down to who you are as a person. Now, for those who know us on the channel, know that Jack's an absolute dog person. You own a dog. I'm an absolute cat person. I've had cats my whole life. They're my favourite animal. And I do think it is a little bit like picking cats or dogs. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it comes down to who you are as a person. And I think Kenny versus Jane is also the same as saying, do you pick logic and reason versus emotion and loyalty? I don't know if you agree with that, Jack, because I kind of just see Kenny kind of as that dog companion, that guy who's really loyal, but also quite rowdy, And I think Jane's that person who, is probably a little less loyal, but has that level-headed sense of survival about her.
No, I completely agree. I thought it was such a good point when you brought it up, because I completely see it. In terms of the words that I've got written down here for Kenny, I've got noble, I've got emotional, I've got sort of proactive, family minded when you're thinking about dogs. You know, they're a pack animal. And they have like a strength in character, but they can also be quite temperamental. And I know this is a sweeping statement, you know, all dogs have different personalities, all cats have different personalities. But if we're talking about stereotypes, I do think we're onto something. And then again, when you think about Jane, you know, there's a survival instinct in her, quite independent, you know, arguably more cold. You know, so like some of these things that, you know, again have been levelled at cats. Like it is, I do see the logic there, mate. And it's obviously funny because, like I say, I'm sticking with Kenny, who is like team dog, and you're team Jane with the cat.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, guys, like obviously let us know in the comments what you think of that. But nonetheless, guys, I will get it over with. Let's get into fighting time. So I feel like it's Pokemon. Do I defend Jane or do I attack Kenny? I'm going to start with an attack. I guess my biggest quarrel with Kenny, mate, is the fact that in season 1, if you lose 1 Kenny point, he hates you for the entire thing, and your relationship, it's almost like unrecoverable. Now, for me, when I played season 1, that point is in episode 2, when you're in the freezer and you're locked up, where Kenny drops the salt lick on Larry's face. Now, the issue I have with that is that, like, I do think that is straight up, like, murder. The fact that he did it in front of the person's daughter, in front of Clem as well, the little girl. Like, I do think it's, like, a really unforgivable, basically, murder. And I don't know, like, it's tough for me to defend him on the hills on that one. I just think if I'm Lily in that room, in the freezer, if someone drops a salt lick on, like, my dad's head after he's, like, had like a heart issue and he might not have even been dead, like a pulse wasn't even checked, we're doing CPR, then I feel like I'm straight up killing the fucker who did that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So the moment he did that, he just was daggers to Lee throughout the whole season, and he was just like really horrible to me. And for something where I think I thought I did the reasonable thing. So yeah, I just feel like he's quite a selfish. I love the guy, but I do think he's selfish and arrogant.
Interesting. He's gone back to season 1 for the first argument. I've kept this to like season 2. I've not even like kept.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, like that is a season 1, but I do think that bleeds into season 2 because I think it's the same thing with Sarita, for example. Like I think he's not changed. Like if anything, he's potentially worsened. Where he's all lovey-lovey with Clem. And then the moment you chop her hand off, or like, you know, you get her killed because you're like, we're in a horde, we're all gonna die if you don't get the fuck away. Like, he just instantly like yells at you and like kind of like proper berates Clementine and calls her a stupid little girl. And like season 2 kind of also has that Kenny versus Luke arc, and it's just kind of why I feel safer sat on Luke's table here because this Kenny guy's quite erratic, you know. But yeah, I don't know what you have to say to that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, before I defend him, because, you know, I think everyone know watching this that naturally we can see the pros and cons to both characters, right? So yeah, like the thing is, with the whole Kenny thing, yes, there's a hypocrisy there because with the Sarita thing and Clem can put an axe in her face, which is exactly what he did to Larry. I completely get it. He does act out of impulse, and especially when it doesn't affect him, he's very easy to make decisions that will, you know, upset everybody else, but he thinks it's for the betterment of the group. However, though, to say that he's quite selfish, nah, I'm gonna swing back on that because I feel like this guy, you know, despite everything, like he's lost his son and wife, plus another partner, but he always assumes the role of like the father figure. He's the one that's fixing the car. He's the one in season 1 that wants to get the boat to, you know, get everyone to safety. He's the one that sort of mines after Clem. He's the one that jumps down after Krista in the hole in episode 5 of season 1. Like this guy, he's the one as well that like wants to initiate an escape plan. He's the one that kills Carver. Like this guy is, you know, he's like a warrior for like whatever group he's put in. Like he will look out for so many people, especially Clem. And does he have his flaws? Yes, is he quite emotional and temperamental at the time? But I think, like, the core of the man, I think is honest and pure in a way. It's just that sometimes his methods definitely go awry. But I think, like, he's a good family-minded man, but he just makes some poor choices at times. But I think ultimately he is looking out for a lot of people. Whereas, and this is where I'm going to come at Jane now, whereas Kenny's been through so much and lost so much, you then have a character like Jane who clearly has gone through a lot as well, carrying her sister, losing her sister. But where the two characters differ is that even though Kenny suffers and endures that loss, and yet he still looks out for other people. Another example is Ben, by the way. Ben, who sort of betrayed him, and he can still look out for Ben at the very end of season 1. Jane, she becomes very selective, very detached, and while that is a positive in the apocalypse, it's just something that doesn't chime with me. I feel like you've ultimately got to place your trust in people at times. Of course, you need to have some sort of sensible judgment, but the fact that she can bail on Sarah so quickly, the fact that she's saying that a baby is a nuisance when someone's pregnant, it's just very insensitive and very cold. And I will therefore always naturally lean to Kenny, and I'll probably say it's like a better the devil you know sort of thing, because you know what Kenny's flaws are. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and they're right there in front of you. Jane is somehow more backstabby and will, could potentially go behind your back to screw you over.
Nah, it's a good point. Nah, for sure. Like, I'll take that. One thing, and going back to the word selfish for Kenny, what I'll say, maybe selfish is too harsh a word. Maybe hypocritical is the better one. It's tough to say because and I'm gonna if you can tell I'm a Liverpool fan because I'm brushing up the season 1 history books here, blowing the cobwebs off of it and the dust. But for example, I feel like Kenny has his really close circle. In season 1 it's Catcher and Duck, and everyone outside of that can get dropped on their head. So for example, he'll drop the salt lick on Larry's head and then he'll go out gung-ho, putting the rest of the group in danger to miraculously try and save Catcher and Duck in this really stupid fashion. And I feel like it's kind of sort of a similar position. So I don't know, I just personally wouldn't feel safe with Kenny if he had a family with him, And I know you can also hark back to season 1 and he's the man who lifts you up to the door, because he sees you as an ally. But I feel like he will only do that as long as there's someone, there, such as a Catcher or a Duck, where he sees you as the benefit to help them. And give him his due. The moment the baby's in, he almost changes a flick of a switch. He diverts his attention away from Sarita, and he puts that kind of energy into AJ. So I do respect that. So yeah, maybe hypocritical is probably the better word. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If say you leave with Kenny and you walk into season 3 with him, and let's say you come across a community and he meets a woman, I'd be there as Clementine, oh shit, I could get dropped like a sack of spuds here. Maybe not, we can't say that, but I think that is Kenny's track record.
Oh, you've set me up here, You've set me up here, because I'm going to come swinging back again.
I know what you're going to say, but I have a counter for that, so fucking come on.
Oh, okay. First point being, I know you said about the whole he endangers Catcher and Duck. Only thing I would say is if you was in Kenny's shoes, would you be a bit more reckless to go save your wife and son? I know I certainly would be, because it's my wife and son.
I mean, it's probably easier, it's easier for me to say than do, because I'm single and I'm a cat in this scenario, I'm not a dog, so yeah. But no, I do get what you're saying. If I had a wife and kids, I would. And that's the thing. I think that's still less of a Kenny flaw, more of a husband flaw. Being in the apocalypse with a family person, with their family present, that your group could potentially get jeopardized, because if he has to lift one or the other up, you know you're going to be second choice. While I feel like, and it's the whole thing as well, is if you value survival, you pick Jane every day of the week for me, because like, you know, she's lifting you up because she's a loner, where she sort of sees you as priority. You're like the little sister in a way. I mean, that again is debatable because she cuts and runs, but I do have a point later on for that. But I just feel, yeah, like as long as, you know, Penny has a priority, I feel like you're second best.
Right, okay. I mean, I'm going to come back to that word hypocrite, mate, because you've probably been expecting it. It's the whole baby debacle. So, literally in the run-up to the final bit of episode 5, season 2, she's in the car, they're bickering. Oh, you know, everyone's scared of you. All you do, Kenny, is manipulate people into doing what you want, and blah, 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 so on, right? I'm now going to say that Jane's a hypocrite because she's clearly trying to win Clem over, and the fact that she's willing to pretend that a baby is dead in order to anger Kenny enough to get into a fight with him to then provoke potentially his death or abandonment, I don't know. And literally, this is words from the horse's mouth. She says this. She says, you know, if you do choose to kill Kenny, she says to Clem by the car, I wanted to show, you know, what Kenny could be like. But that's exactly her manipulating Clem. So, and considering that she was saying that that's what Kenny did a little while previous, I think she's a bit of a hypocrite as well, mate.
No, for sure. I mean, with the whole baby debacle, Babygate, I do think like there's no defending it, and that is the one thing that you can't defend Jane on, and it is the reason why I'm Team Solo over Jane. I'm Jane every day of the week up until that last minute decision that she does. She says, and what was the quote again? That I needed to prove the kind of person he was. I needed to show you. For me, I was already there. I already knew, like, Penny's, like, mental state has been declining throughout season 1 and season 2, and it was, like, ready to drop him.
He has to go, blood. He has to go, blood.
For me, like, that is the point he has to go, and I feel like Jane didn't need to go to that extreme measure because, like I say, I was already there. So, yeah, no, like, there's no defending that. For her to do that, like, and it's just such a tacky argument, like, you can laugh at it, but, like, I almost think that it almost felt to me like Jane was kind of like the favourite at that point, or winning the choice. And then I feel like they had to tack on a decision, oh, we need to make this more split the room. So Jane has to do this really big heinous act, which I would argue is kind of against her character. I mean, you could argue it is, but to me it just felt very out of nowhere, very left field. So yeah, no, like that is one thing, mate, where yeah, we'll criticize Jane together because it's dumb, it's stupid, and it's massive. It's why she's not my top choice. It's why Solo's my top choice.
I do take your point though, because it does seem a little bit out of character for her, doesn't it? You know, to suddenly, you know, put a baby, especially with this backstory of her sister. You know, you think, oh, blimey, like you've left your sister. You'd think that, not it would be redemption would be the wrong word, but like, you know, like how...
a lesson learned.
Yeah, like a lesson learned. Like with Kenny, obviously for him it's like losing Catcher and Duck, right? So like for him it's probably, you know, Sarita, and that's why it, you know, hurt so much for him. For Jane, yeah, like the sister, and then like you'd think that keeping the baby around would be the right thing. So yeah, I do get it though. Like, I say that argument in sort of full knowledge that the writing choice is certainly to be questioned.
Yeah, one thing we mentioned before is that, like, you know, we did speak about, like, Penny is the loyal one because, I mean, there's no hiding it. Jane at one point ditches the group, right? And then she comes back. I will defend that to an extent because I almost get it, because for Jane, she sort of sees the season 2 group. And it is the big theme of season 2, how Clem is with this absolute useless group full of like people who like can't do anything for themselves. They're getting an 11-year-old girl to fix a wind turbine, for fuck's sake. That I think Jane is the first character we almost see in that season that looks at you like, holy shit, like, what are you doing with this group? They're going to get you killed. Almost the way sort of Chuck looks at you in season 1, like, you're going to have to cut your hair. Like, Jane sees this potential in you, and I feel like she runs because she's a cat. She's, like, a survivor. But then she sort of sees, actually, like, I've lost one little sister, Clem's become my new little sister, I've got to go back, and she does make amends by saving the day. And I honestly want to say that I don't think Jane would run a second time. I think she had to lose Clem in order to understand that she needed Clem. And I do think that, like, for the foreseeable with Clem and Jane together, I do think that is the ultimate big little sister relationship there.
Fair enough. You know what? I mean, I'm going to make another point now. I've not even got this written down. I suppose it doesn't... does it necessarily answer the debate of who's the better person? Probably not, but maybe I can lead into it a little bit. But even just taking season 2, if you just forget season 1, because obviously it's naturally unfair because Kenny's in 2 seasons and Jane's in half a season. Yeah. But just looking at season 2, I just think of like iconic moments for both characters. And for me, for Kenny, like if you was asking me this question in like 5-10 years time, I could point to the moment where he sees you and you can see that, you know, that sheer joy that he's reunited with Clementine, and you have the touching hug. You can even if you kill him, this is the thing, even if you kill Kenny, he'll tell you that you've made the right decision. Like, he is so selfless that in death, he doesn't want his death to be a burden on a little girl. He's like, you know what, you've made the right call. I've made some bad decisions. I'm clearly in an emotional decline. We're okay, sort of thing. You know, you don't have to worry about it. Another moment is if the ending, if he leaves you or if you choose to go into Wellington. The fact that he's putting Clem and AJ before himself says a lot about the man. And the fact that he's so family minded that actually saying goodbye to 2 people that he's looked after for, you know, God knows how long, you know, this story's been. Again, it just sort of said, and you can see the difficulty there. Like, he's starting to cry when he's walking away. He sort of glances his head and he says to her, you know, don't look back, because, you know, it makes it all too hard for him. So he just walks off and goes and does his thing. And I just think that some of the scenes are really touching. And you know what? Even another one in the car, when he's fixed the car and he's like, I need you on side, Clem, because I really want to convince the guys that we're making the right choice to get out of here and have a better life and go elsewhere. I just think that his intentions are pure and honest. And I then look at Jane, and the first thing I think of Jane, which isn't a bad thing, is the fact that she teaches you the combat moves, which is great, you know, for a survival thing, completely behind it. But beyond that, there's nothing that I reckon, if you was to ask me this in like 5-10 years time, that stands out. Like, if you get me.
Yeah, like in terms of the standout, I get it. And it's so interesting that I'm taking Jane's side, because like Kenny, we're there thick and thin with him for like 10 episodes. Jane, we've only known her for 3. But yeah, no, it is a very good point to say. Yeah, like I do think she is like the more level-headed and safer one, and the better person to have in the group. And I think as well, the thing you mentioned as well by Kenny's quotes when he does eventually die, and like obviously for me, like, and I think we have to look at like the face value of the actual moment of when you have to make the choice, right? And when they're fighting, Kenny is the one that is about to win the fight and he has the upper hand. And there was just something within me that couldn't let Jane die. I don't know, like it was like Kenny was murdering her, like with a pretty brutal death as well, with like a stab to the heart, you know. And I felt like, you know, putting him away with a bullet was like more humane, I guess. And when I did that, I don't know, I think like I felt it was the right call for me, because it's like you mentioned, mate, he does say you made the right decision and how proud he was of you, like. And he almost like looks like he's at peace, like he's ready to see Duck and Catcher again, and Sarita. That's going to be an awkward moment up in heaven, so it'd be interesting to see how he managed that one. But yeah, like I don't know, he just I feel like his mental decline was almost becoming too much for him. He's been such a good servant, such a loyal friend to you, but I do think he ran out of road, and I do think that, you know, he was so blinded by rage and arrogance that I do think that was the good time to let him go. And I'm not saying he's a bad person, I just think that the apocalypse has its toll on everyone, and I think for him that was the final point. So yeah, like, and it could be that Jane sat there thinking, oh yeah, that's the right call, he was a bad person, but I would disagree with Jane. I would say, nah, like, he's been through a lot, we need to put him out his misery, because I felt his mental decline was going so low that I almost wanted to save him from harming anyone else, or even himself, mate.
Yeah, and I think honestly, that's where you come into it, but where you've seen such a decline, and it really is a question of loyalty, isn't it? We know that loyalty can be a double-edged sword, right? And how far do you go with this man who's clearly on a decline, who's clearly got a lot on his shoulders, before you fall victim to it, or before others fall victim? I mean, one argument put forward was that if he was allowed to carry on as he was, that he would end up like a Carver figure. So like the tragic hero then becomes a villain. So like, at what point do you have to intervene in that? So I think that's why I've naturally gone to solo, to almost as a compromise, because at least then Kenny, a character that I like, goes off and he lives and he doesn't have that shoddy ending in A New Frontier. But also, hopefully, he's not going to continue down this path that's got him to where he is, where he's clearly very mentally unstable.
I know, that's a very good point, and the only sort of final bullet I have in my arsenal, mate, I don't know if you've got more, but the only thing I can really, like, take to Kenny there is that the guy's a little bit racist. I mean, like,
Right.
yeah, I'm gonna say it, mate. I mean, it's just the fact that, yeah, like, I think it comes hand in hand with his mental decline, because he's lost everything and he just wants to find safety, and he has the prisoner, and like we saw it with the Urban Comic Willie in season 1, and he's there beating this Russian kid throughout season 2, or like throughout the episode, and it's interesting because, like, you know, I mean, whether I'm pulling the card or not, but like, I don't know, it's one of those ones where, as a sort of straight white male, I almost look at that like, oh yeah, that's bad. But like, it would be interesting for me to kind of like get the perspective of someone who kind of like maybe is Russian, or maybe someone who's black, because like, I kind of like, I've never heard what their opinion is on Kenny, and I genuinely would be intrigued. Like, does the loyalty and the friendship and all the good stuff like outweigh those little comments? Because it's almost kind of like, in an instant, like, oh, he didn't mean to say that, you know? And I wonder kind of like what the general consensus in the minorities are for Kenny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you've got me there. Like, it's indefensible, isn't it? Like, let's go on the table.
Yeah, there's like, Jane put a baby in a car and abandoned it. Kenny's a little racist. It's like, you know, they're not perfect characters. They're really well written.
No, but that I think that's partly why. And you know what? I'm glad we've done this video, because when I first played season 2, I didn't really look into it that much. But when you really dive deep into the characters, you can see that there are parallels between these two. There's a lot of things where they're very different as well, and I think the fact that there's a lot of greyness for them both just makes it a really good debate. I mean, that's just a sign of a really good character, because as human beings, we are complex, we have good things, we have flaws, and you know, Kenny and Jane reflect that. So I think that's probably a good way to almost wrap up my thinking on both of them, to be honest.
That's it. I love any form of writing in these choice-based games where it can split the room, such as it has for just me and you. Like, any decision that can make a room go 50-50, or in this case, well, like, obviously 69 and 13 and 18. You know, like, I absolutely respect. So, guys, that was our ultimate Kenny versus Jane debate. Tell me what you thought of our arguments. Tell me in the comments who you'd side with, and like maybe give more reasoning as to why you picked it. And let us know, are you a cat or a dog person? Because that is ultimately what the question boils down to. So, guys, thank you very much. If there's other sort of characters that you want us to debate about, let us know. You know, we're all ears. We will grab every comment. But thank you very much for joining, guys. We will see you in the next one.
Catch you later.